We are working with dignity and self-worth today. Our inherent dignity is something that we can work with in a lot of different ways. Maybe I'll put it that way. This whole page, this quote's from Prentice Hemphill, the Embodiment Institute. Many of you are familiar with them. And from an interview that I did with them a couple of years ago for the Radical Recovery Summit, talking about our inherent dignity as a kind of integrity. So when I was thinking about what to work with in terms of social health, which is our theme right now in the fall, our inherent dignity that we have inside of us and that we can connect with, that's very much affected by the trauma that we experience as well. And then how we're sharing that, how we are in relationship with other people. He said in that interview was, I don't have to prove it. I don't need you to witness my dignity. It's not actually about you. It's about something that's internal to us. And somehow she managed to internalize that sense that it wasn't something wrong with them. So as they were going through their childhood and teen years and younger adult years, they're now a very well-respected teacher. But somehow they didn't have that sense of core deficiency beliefs that many of us do. I thought that was really an interesting point to bring forward, is that our dignity is internal. It's our relationship with ourselves. And that we can have an intact dignity even when we're in circumstances of being dehumanized or traumatized. When we think about dignity and trauma, one of the first things that comes to mind is that most of those experiences, when we're either systemic oppression or when we're traumatized in relationship or as a child, there's a loss of humanity. And then we go on to do whatever it is that we need to survive. We're often in survival responses, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And we blame ourselves. We feel like there's something wrong with me and that's why it happened. And we feel like whatever happened is a scar or a stain, that there's something bad about me now. So that's a really hard thing to hold. And that's why a lot of the work that we do is around seeing through those lies, that it is not true. Whatever it was, especially when we were children, whatever happened to us was something to do with the adults, with the people around us. We live in a very stressful culture. A lot of people have mental health issues. They might be working a lot. Many parents don't have the emotional maturity to be regulated and to be there for our children. There's the intergenerational trauma component of that as well. Many of us have a lot of regret about, for me, it took me a long time to come into experiencing myself as whole. And I know that I'm not the only one with that. In addition to that, we might shame ourselves for how we survived the trauma. So if we were in a state of freeze, we might have been shaming ourselves, well, I should have fought back. I should have left that relationship sooner. And if we were in a fight response, maybe it's, well, I blew up those relationships, there's something wrong with me. This whole area around trauma is something that we can work with. And it's quite difficult because these are not inherent in the sense of our worth, but they're inherent in the sense that they get inside of us. And we believe that that's who we are. Today, we're going to do some inquiry that helps us to turn that around. Maya Angelou, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. When we think about trauma, a lot of the things that we do to survive trauma, maybe it's we really sucked up to people. We were a people pleaser, and we feel embarrassed by that now. Or maybe we're angry at what happened to us and how we couldn't come out of that sooner. We have a lot of different experiences and responses to that. And a lot of them are things that we have reduced ourselves. Not in the sense of we're to blame for that happening, but in the sense of this is the common pattern and common response to trauma is when we are objectified and made feel like less than human, or that we're too sensitive, that we're not worth anything. And that's the kind of belief that we internalize about ourselves. Maya Angelou had a very difficult life, especially in her early years. If anybody wants to read more about her, she's got some really wonderful books about her earlier life in particular. And she's a very, very well respected person who, when you think about dignity, she's one of the people that comes to mind. She has a real solid sense of her own worth and her own dignity, internal dignity. And that's how she lived her life. That's where she kind of came from. One of the pathways into that is to stop blaming ourselves. We don't have to be perfect. We can look through a trauma lens and see, wow, that was really big what was happening. And of course, I didn't know how to deal with it in a better way. Of course, I moved into feeling like it was my fault. That's what children can afford, is to think it's our fault because we can't turn against our parents. That's too dangerous. So we can stop that toxic shaming of feeling like there's something really wrong with me, and instead go to some bad things happen to me, some really hurtful things, some traumatizing things, and I'm not bad. My experiences were harmful, and I'm not bad. And that's something that we can come to in a lot of different ways. We can work with that in a lot of different ways. Anyone who's familiar with the movies Avatar, one of the things that they said in that is, I see you. And when we're talking about social health and connection, that's really what we're doing, is we want to be able to see ourselves, to know our own true essence, to see who we really are, and to respect ourselves, to honor ourselves. And then from that, can we connect with other people and really see them as well. In this community class, one of the things I love about this so much is we do connect with each other in that way. We're doing this internal work of seeing ourselves, and we're doing this connection work of seeing each other and of allowing ourselves to be seen. So let's do some inquiry. I can afford to see myself. Take a few breaths. Make sure that you're in your body and use whatever tools you need to stay present. Working with our sense of shame is difficult, can be quite intense. And in particular, what we're trying to do here is to not get dragged back into traumatic memory. We want to stay here in this moment where we know that it's true. There's nothing wrong with me. I know that here. And there might be parts of us where we get dragged back into these experiences of remembering times when we didn't know that. We just didn't know that. So breathing, hold your own hands, eyes open, look around the room, framing, all of those tools. And then as we're going into the inquiry, let yourself be present, kind. I know that those are false core deficiency beliefs. There's nothing wrong with me. And notice how you feel. Notice what your response is. I am worthy of love and connection as I am right now. I don't have to fix myself. I don't have to be kinder or lose weight or have more money or not be in a fight response. I don't have to do any of those things. Right now, deep inside of me, I am worthy of love and connection. And I could move into knowing that. And notice how you're responding to that. Quite often, the inner critic will come in right now and go, nope, not true. You can't even be patient with that person in the store. You can't even, whatever the mind might be telling you. See if you could notice those, work with the tools, tap on your forehead, put them into frame. Those are things that your mind is bringing in, but they're not true. And see if you could open into that a little bit. I am worthy of love and connection, exactly as I am. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't change things. If we're out of alignment with something, we might want to work with that. If we're hanging around with people that are really toxic, we might want to work with that. If we're, in some kind of an addiction, we might want to work with that. So we're not saying everything I do is perfect. We're feeling into this opening of, I am worthy of love, my deeper self, my inner self. And let yourself see if you could feel that in your whole system. It might be in your heart. You can put your hands on your heart if you want. Before we move into the connection with others piece, let's really work on this connection within. Let your breath support you. If you're holding your breath, see if you could let that have a bit more ease. And let yourself come below the level of the mind, of the thought stream. What does that feel like internally to you as you search for that knowing? There's a lot of things that cloud that. A lot of chatter in the mind, a lot of things that might feel like they're an obstacle to knowing that. We might be seeing them and looking at them and then saying, right now, just set that aside, let it move to the side. Where is that in you? How do you feel that, or how do you know that? Or maybe it's right out of reach and you can kind of get a little sense, but you can't go right into it. Let's give this a couple of minutes of sitting with this. I know, somewhere inside, I know that I'm worthy of love. I have that inherent worth, inherent dignity. And we can work with this next part as an internal inquiry. I can afford for you to see me, that part of me that feels shame. I can afford to let my adult self or my whole self see me. I can afford to come forward and let myself be connected. You might be doing this thinking about another person, or you might be doing it thinking about yourself. I can afford to let my parts that still feel really hurt, they can come forward. I can hold them with compassion, with kindness, with empathy. Notice if your mind is wandering. You might be in a bit of a flight response, or if you're getting kind of numb or disconnected from this. And you can make it really practical. Right now in my body, is there any evidence that I'm not worthy? And then see what happens. There might be sensation, could be very uncomfortable sensation even. We're not really listening to the thoughts in the mind. The inner critic gets a lot of airplay. We're not really wanting to take our direction from the inner critic right now. What about the sensations in the body? If you have somewhere in your body that you're storing that sensation of, I don't think I am good. The things that have happened to me, I really feel like they've harmed me, but they've also left like a permanent stain. We can be affected by what's happened to us, as Maya Angelou said, and not to be reduced by that, not to let ourselves believe that there's something wrong with us because we've had experiences of being harmed and also experiences of feeling like there's something wrong with us. Where does that reside in your body if that's something that you could connect with right now? If there's sensation in your body, one of the things we do is we notice it, we describe it, we notice, is it hot or cold? Is it moving? Is it still? Do I want to get out of here? Do I not want to feel this? That would be, of course, it would make sense. But could we stay present with whatever is in the body? Let the thoughts move to the background for a minute. Notice the space around the energy. Notice your breath. You could have your eyes open. It's reminding yourself that you're here in this moment. We have a lot of evidence that might be coming forward. It's a faulty logic. It's not true. My dignity is inside, it's inherent, it's within me. By the fact that I'm a human being, I have this inherent worth. From here, can we share with other people? And this isn't a 15-minute inquiry and then this is all fixed. This is a lot more deep conditioning, deeply held, internalized trauma. So we're not expecting that, oh, okay, of course. It's way deeper than that. And yet we can really touch in with that sense of our own value.